All right, welcome everyone to another Peaceful Solution Character Education Program certification class. And we're going to continue along if you brought your character units. And it's very important when you come to bring a teacher's manual, because everything we've covered thus far is only in the teacher's manual. It's not in the student's manual. Of course, the student's manual will start with page 1, and we'll get into that section tonight. So very important when you buy a book, since you're coming for the certification class to be a teacher, have a teacher's manual. There's a lot of information to help set the mind of the teacher in preparation for teaching the lesson plans and the procedures. And of course, if you'll turn over, we're going to get started in LP 16, and you can easily find these pages. They're gray tabbed, and that's the first page there. When you get into the second page in your lesson plan, and it's entitled LP 16 for the page number. And once again, it's gray tabbed, and it'll start off with Chapter 1, More Than Meets the Eye. Now, the last class we covered the introduction into the unit and kind of gave an overview of what the unit actually consists of. And remember that this is the first of 5 units in the intermediate or junior high series, and that's what helps us to build upon. We talked about building upon the blocks of character and developing character, and that's exactly what we're doing by starting off with this character unit, because we're trying to put a visual in the minds of the students when we speak to them, when we talk to them, and we want to make sure that if we're trying to put a picture in the mind of the students, that we really put a picture in the mind of the teachers, because the teachers are, as we read last from the author, that's our greatest tool that we have, are the teachers, and we're putting full trust into them to educate our students of tomorrow. So starting off here on LP 1C, Chapter 1, More Than Meets the Eye. And it's very important to understand what that's saying, more than meets the eye. It's a saying that actually is trying to relate that there's more to something than appears to be at first. You know, and I got a picture I want you to look at, because it really helps to get into the mind of someone. It's a picture of an iceberg. And when you see an iceberg, of course, you see what's above the water, but you see all below the water here just because the picture's been set that way. But when you're on top of the water, you can't see everything below the water. You can't see the magnitude of what you're actually looking at, or if you were to run into it, what you're actually hitting. But character and personality can be the same way. Character, more specifically, is what we're talking about. And what we want to get into the mind of everyone is when we're dealing with each other, when we meet someone, we can see whether they're kind of chipper and joyful, outgoing. You can see whether they're introverted, drawn back, not very outspoken. We can see those things pretty readily. But the character is something we have to spend a little time on. The character is something you have to get to know. And we're going to base that, the Peaceful Solution, we're going to base character, and it's very important that everyone understands this. Positive character is based upon how well someone complies with the rules that keep society safe, keeps the environment safe, keeps themselves safe, because those rules are what actually bring peace to our societies, to our states, to our governments, to our countries, to society as a whole, speaking of the entire earth, the population of the earth. Well, here on a note to the teacher, this is to get the teacher's mindset on what you're going to be bringing the students. And once again, this is not found in the student's handbook. This is for the teacher to get your mindset on what you're getting ready to teach your students. And it says, how often do we as adults confuse someone's personality, which is how they present themselves to others, with the character, their morals and ethics? So how often do we confuse someone's personality for their character as adults? How often does that take place? Do you ever catch yourself saying, he seemed like such a nice person? Or I never thought she would do that. Yes, even as adults, we can mistake a pleasant personality for a positive character. If this can occur to us as adults, how much more likely can it occur to our children? You know, there's something that we see in society, and it's called scams. And this is where someone presents themselves to be a really nice person, someone that you may find trying to sell you something that you really need, and they've got your best interest in mind. They know that you have something that's missing in your life, and they really want to help you get it, and they'll jump through any loophole they need to help you get it. Or, of course, you might find your next love online, willing to do anything for you except meet you. Or you may find somebody that's got the best car on the lot, and they're trying to sell it to you, but they have to move it every day, so you can't tell that's the one leaking the oil all over the lot. You know, when you're talking about scams, I want to show you this. This is a study that's done by a place called the ACCC. It's a scam watch organization. And this is for 2020, so that's for this year. The number of reported scams, and remember, when most people get scammed and they lose money, it's embarrassing. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to tell somebody. They don't want someone to know that they just got taken advantage of. So these are the reported scams that we're talking about. So far this year, there's been 173,726 scams, people that have reported being scammed. They've lost over $132,134,719. Now, think about what it takes to earn that money. And these are people that work for their money just for someone else to take it from them through lies, deception. You know, and here's the amount of money it's been taking, and this is done how the money, an ordinance with how much has been taken for each scam. The greatest scam that takes place is investment scams. Someone trying to get you to invest in something and they take your money. The second one is dating and romance. Meet them on social media and they try to pull you in. That's the second one. The next one is threat to life or arrest. They blackmail you. Online shopping scams and actually false billing. This great company just billed me for the service. I need to pay them. They sent me an email, said I need to pay them. And you pay for something that you really don't even have. But they presented themselves in a great way. And then you have classified scams. You have health and medical product scams. Identity theft, believe it or not, is on the bottom. And that's the one you hear the most about. But these scams are where people present themselves to be really nice people. You know, and there's many people, when you take your children to the park, you always tell them, don't talk to strangers. Well, why not? Because every stranger you talk to is not a really nice person. They may present themselves, or they might present themselves that way, but that doesn't mean that they are. They want to win you over in believing that I've got your best interest in mind. Well, think about that as we go through this, because as adults, we can be scammed really easy. And we're showing that through studies, statistics, and things that we're getting back where people are watching and reporting and recording what's taking place. So if this can occur to adults who are 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years old, the greatest age group that is being scammed is the 65 on up. Those are the ones that are scammed the most. Those are the ones that have worked their whole lives to earn money, and here comes someone else trying to take it right out from underneath them. So think about what that takes for a person to do that. That would be a very negative character. There's no interest in mind as far as helping someone when you scam them. Well, if it's easy for the adults, it's very easy for a child that may be 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. They haven't even got out into society yet. The value of money really hasn't set into their mind yet. So think about how easy it would be. So continuing on here in the second paragraph, it says, it's a known fact that on the onset of adolescence, children begin to seek acceptance outside the family unit and identify more with their friends. Now, if you remember the last class, we talked about how the first teachers people will encounter are their parents or their guardians. That's the first teachers. Well, we're talking about children here that are now, they're growing up, they're starting to grasp, the adulthood. It's not really there, but their fingers can touch growing up now. There's more freedom as they grow up. They see, where you can get a driver's permit that comes with inside, a driver's license. I can go get a job and work part-time. I'm into high school now, or I'm into junior high where I get to go from one class to the next, and I have the freedom to go like those things. And they start traveling a little bit more, and they get more separation from their original teachers or their parents or their guardians. Well, they see different things, and different households have different rules. And the thing that will differentiate as we go through this, it's okay for different households to have different rules when it comes to things that govern leave the kitchen light on, never turn it off at night. Grandmother goes into the kitchen, she can't find the light, it's best to leave it on. That's a rule that's acceptable if that's okay in one house. A rule that would not be acceptable in any house is it's okay to play with a gun when the parents are gone. That's okay. No one knows. We can play with a gun. That should be a rule that's not acceptable in every household. But there's some rules that are okay. Why are they okay? Because they don't bring harm to yourself, someone else, or the environment, or they don't have the potential to bring harm. And that's one way when you're trying to talk to your child, when they see new things, tell them, ask themselves, will this new rule or this new activity I see, could it bring harm to myself, someone else, or the environment? Those are the three questions they should ask themselves. As a parent, those are the three questions we should ask ourselves. And if it can have the potential to do so, then that should fall into the negative area. That should fall into the negative character. That doesn't mean that if you see someone doing something negative that it can't be changed, but we're talking about immediate decisions that are being made in the mind of an adolescent that is wanting more freedom. And you have to put something in their mind. And remember, if we don't put this in their mind to ask themselves that question, then we as parents can't really expect them to ever ask themselves that question, to evaluate the situation. It's just not there for them to do so. It has to be put within the mind first. Well, continuing on, it said, it's this need to belong and to be accepted by their peers that often puts children in a vulnerable position. And we'll get into talking about peer pressure and conformity and influences and the values that people have when we continue on in the lessons. But it's important to understand the drive behind the child and why they look outwardly to new things. It says, too often our children arrive at the most crucial point in their lives ill prepared. And that means not being equipped or ready for something. Not being equipped or ready for something. So they're ill prepared to be too cautious about their friends and those they associate with. And when you go into intermediate school or junior high, it's like a whole new world opens up to most people. Now you see some of these things in the elementary schools, but it hasn't always been that way, but it's gradually going. When you get into junior high, you see your friend snorting something. Well, it didn't kill him. And he says he enjoys it. Says it makes him feel great. Or you see them smoking something. Or you see them doing something really foolish, as we've had here in Abilene, Texas, where youth like to get on the hood of cars and they'll ride through the parking lot and they call it car surfing. Well, everybody's doing it until the person fell off the car and died, or until the person overdosed, or until the person had something really bad occur. And you might be thinking that these things aren't that prevalent with children. They're just children. They just want to have fun. Let them have their childhood. Write this down, and please never forget this. When our children, the ages of 11 to 15, when the leading cause of death for that age group is first accidental, and over half of that is automobile accidents. The second is homicide. And the third for this year, which flip-flops with certain age groups, is suicide. When that is the three leading causes of death for children the ages 11 to 15, that should bring to our minds that there's a lot of things that were not put in the mind of adolescents. There's a lot of risk-taking behaviors that are taking place, and children are falling victim to the point to where they're losing their lives. There's a lot of information that should have been instilled in children that are 11 years old that think they're starting to reach that. I can see 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I got my driver's permit now. When you see the study that was done by the CDC for the deaths that take place for that age group, once you get into automobiles, it skyrockets. And you have what they call the 100 deadliest days of summer. And that goes from Memorial Day to Labor Day. And that is usually where you get to the end of a school year and the beginning of the next school year. They call that in schools the 100 deadliest days of summer for students, because that is when the most students will be killed in an auto accident. That's when they feel they have the most freedom. I have no school. I can go play, go enjoy myself, go live a little bit. My friends live a little bit. I want to live a little bit too. Nothing wrong with living a little bit, as it doesn't cause harm to yourself, someone else, or the environment. And that's the most important thing to put into their minds. Otherwise, they'll be ill prepared. And as a society, we have to face the fact that our young people are not prepared, because we see this taking place. Studies are showing it. So continuing on here, it says, at times like these, they are less likely to choose people with a positive moral character with whom to build a strong, lasting friendship, opting rather to get close to those who offer only fun and excitement. Go home and ask your children. As a teacher, ask your students, what do you look for in a friend the most? See what they say. And let them answer honestly. Don't pressure them into giving you the answer that they think that you want to hear. Just ask them. There's no right or wrong answer. What are you looking for? There really is a right or wrong answer, but if you haven't taught them, there's not a right or wrong answer for them because you haven't taught them yet. There has to be a teaching point before they know what's right and what's wrong. Until then, they're ill prepared. Well, notice it says this makes them susceptible to negative peer pressure and risk-taking behaviors. I want to show you a statistic, and this is kind of mind-blowing. Speaking of, this is done for 15 to 24-year-olds. And I want you to think of what's taking place in the current environment we're in with COVID-19 right now. 12 million cases here in the United States. Grocery stores, if you've been in town, are almost empty. People buying everything. They're just going through and buying up things they don't even know why they're buying it. They're buying it. Places are shutting down all over the United States, all over the world actually. People are actually talking about not gathering in many events, schools, churches, other events. They're talking about shutting everything down. No gathering, 12 million cases. Well, remember we talked about how our young people can be ill prepared? I want you to notice this study done by the CDC, adolescents and youth. 15 to 24-year-olds account for half of all new sexually transmitted diseases, or STDs. Now, how many is half? Well, notice it says while STDs affect individuals of all ages, STDs take a particularly heavy toll on young people. CDC estimates that youth ages 15 to 24 make up just over 1/4 of the sexually active population, but account for half of the 20 million new STD infections that occur in the United States each year. So think about this. We have something that affects children, a child for life, and adults. 20 million every year, and 10 million are children, are young adults. But we don't shut down anything for that. You don't really hear much about it. But we're slamming the brakes on for COVID-19. So think about how in society we'll really send up a warning flag to one thing, but we kind of gloss over the other ones. So then you have to ask yourself, why are we as a society not making this important? Why are we not informing our children of these things? Why do they not know? And why does this statistic keep going up and up and up? Because we're working so hard to keep COVID down. No, I'm not saying it's wrong to warn people about COVID. What I'm saying is, as a peaceful solution instructor, we need to see all areas of danger and look at them the same. If they can bring harm, we need to warn students of these dangers. Otherwise, we'll leave them ill prepared. We'll expect them to make decisions that can't be made because the knowledge was never put within their mind. They just didn't know. And we can't keep moving as a society, as the peaceful solution says, expecting the right choice when the information was never given. A person can only make a decision with the information that's been put within their minds. So think about that. Why is 20 million not a big deal, but 12 million we need to shut down the country? Does that mean shut down the country? No, that means educate. It means educate, educate, educate. And educate in a way that's, it's your fault. No, it's society's fault. We all fall victim to the fault. The blame can be passed from one end to the other, and it starts with teaching. It really does. Now, continuing on here, it says in the first chapter, students will understand how character and personality are developed, and that's very important. So we're going to teach them how to not only recognize it, but how to develop it themselves, how to grow it. Imagine you're teaching them how to plant a garden, and you're going to teach them how to grow something. And when you grow something in a garden, you have to nurture it. You have to take time to make sure all the ingredients that's there to bring life to that plant, that it gets all the nutrients and it grows healthy. Well, think of the characters the same way. You have to feed it. If you feed it negative things, well, it's like going and putting poison on your plant in the garden. It's just not going to grow. It's going to wither. It's just not going to have the potential it could have had. But if we teach them how to care for this character in a positive way and to develop it, even a personality, then it will grow and they can be successful. That doesn't mean they'll be millionaires and billionaires. It means they'll be a benefit to society where anyone who encounters them actually benefits from being in their presence. And they don't bring harm to themselves, someone else, or the environment. You know, that's really what society wants, but society hasn't put forth the effort as of yet to do so because it's fun. It's more entertaining to do things. How do they say? Stolen sugar is sweeter. Not to the person it was stolen from. You know, so always consider if you've had to do something wrong to get something, someone suffers because of it. Now, continuing on, it says, because we are known by the company we keep, it is imperative that we not only teach children to build a positive character, but to surround themselves with peers who value a positive character as well. And we'll get into values, and a value is something we deem important. Just like if we have that plant in the garden and we go check on it every day, we maintain it every day, well, that's the way our character is. Someone who values a positive character will continually examine what is right and what is wrong. And remember, it's a process. It's not something that's done in one day. Society wasn't broke in a day and it won't be fixed in a night, but it's a process, just like a tree or a plant that grows. Eventually, it yields things that society can benefit from. By teaching children to choose friends based on compatible personality and positive character, we are in effect providing them with the skills to build mutually positive relationships that will support their growth, development, and mental outlook. And it's very important that we realize that we're actually providing them with something. Now we can expect healthier decisions. We can expect more sound decisions, more positive decisions, because we're offering them something. And remember, this offering something, think of it as the way you eat. When you eat, you feel great. You know, you've ate, you're full. You come back just a few hours later and you're ready for the next meal. And a little bit later, you're ready for the next meal. And that's the way character education is. You feed, and then you feed some more, and then you feed some more, and then you feed some more. But we're constantly being tested through everyday activities. What takes place in our lives, for every person, the activities are very different. And the perception of an activity is very different inside the same workplace. You can have an area of work where everybody is on the same work crew, but the perception of the job being done can be very different for each and every person. Well, that's the same when you look at your children in a classroom. If you have 15 children in a classroom, 10 children in a classroom, their perception is very different, each one to the next. So what we're trying to get them to focus on with positive character is this decision-making that is governed by rules that keep us safe. We need to make sure that we can come to an agreement to where we're all going to adhere to these rules that keep society safe. You could eliminate 20 million, and if you remember, that's new cases every year. That's 10 million 15 to 24-year-olds. 10 million a year. Think about the death that comes from that. And we'll get in more to those topics later on, but there's a lot of problems that suffer in the body years later because people were not taught things. People were not educated that you're making a decision that will affect you for the rest of your life. Now, continuing on, it says other concepts will be covered in this chapter are what is morality, or what morality is, everyone's ability to develop positive character, and that's important because everyone has the ability to develop positive character. And once again, what we're going over here is just to set the teacher's mind for what you're teaching, but we're trying to put into your mind as a teacher an onset to have some foresight into what we're going to be going through. So continuing on, it says, as educators and role models, we have the opportunity to fully prepare our students for the future by providing them with academic skills and character education. So we actually are offering them techniques so they can actually make sound decisions. This combination will ensure that we are not only capable of being whatever we want to be, but that they will also be responsible people who have respect for themselves and for others. And that's very important because respect, as we'll get into those things, respecting someone's self is very important because before that will echo throughout society, a person must respect themselves first. Now, moving on here, you'll see that we're now on page LP1E. LP1E, and this is the very first lesson plan that we're coming upon here. And you'll see as we started out in the beginning, when we talked about how to use this program, we have the title of the program. Of course, it says lesson plan more than meets the eye. But notice, as we said before, it always starts with a purpose and objective. Now, this is what the teacher is going to be looking for as they're teaching this. This is what we want to accomplish. And it says students will learn what character is and how to develop it. Students will also learn that there is a clear distinction between character and personality. So notice once again, it's talking about what character is and how it's developed. So we're going to describe it to them. We're going to paint a picture in their mind of what it is. And then we're going to show them how to grow it. And that's not to say, remember, you have a room of 20 people. You have people that are on very different levels. You may have some that come from a home where character is a very important part in the household. So they may be a little bit further ahead, and you should be able to tell that with the way they conduct themselves. And then you may have students that come from a household that you can tell there's not very many positive things taught. Now, as a teacher, you should be able to look at that and know, odds are their parents were not taught very well either. That doesn't mean that's the case, but that's the odds that you're looking at. So, as a teacher, how fast do you move? Remember, with the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program, there's no time limit as far as getting your message across. If you have to recover things some more, then do so. But remember, every day when a situation arises, that's also a situation or an activity that can be used to put the program into action. It's not just when you're teaching it from a book, but everyday activities. So once again, we're going to teach them those things. And the materials that are entailed with this, it says the teacher's manual, audio lessons. They're no longer on cassettes. We'll send them MP3. If you get a book that's digital, the MP3s are actually input into the digital book itself. So we send those out, and as we've told schools, they're more than welcome to make copies of these books. But the lesson plan itself is used through the MP3s. If you need them and don't have them, please email the Peaceful Solution at info@peacefulsolution.org, or you can go to the About section on our Facebook page, and it has all the contact information there. Just give us a call or an email, and we'll very readily send them out to you, because they do help the activities. They put a lot into the activities, and they actually help to keep the student's mind more tuned in to what's being done. They make it more lively, so the students can actually have a deeper interest in what's being said. So now here in the procedure section, this is a teacher's best friend. The procedure section lays out what we need to do as a teacher. And it's very important that, remember, we said in the last class to read through these things first, and I'll show you an example why. The first procedure here, it says to inform students that they will begin studying from the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program. This program will encourage the development of positive moral character. Explain to students that during the course of this program, they will also learn that developing a positive moral character is the first step toward accepting themselves and others, controlling their behavior, respecting society and the environment, and making responsible choices. Now, notice it didn't say anything about covering any pages. But if you look down to Procedure 2, notice it says, tell students that today they will learn what character is and how it is developed. They will also learn how to distinguish between character and personality. Kind of a summary of what you just said in Procedure 1. But notice here it's going to tell us to start off, and you'll see it bold right there in pages 3 and 4. So we have to have pages 1 and 2 covered before we get to procedure 2, because procedure 2 is going to tell us to start with pages 3 and 4. So as you've read ahead, you're going to know that procedure 1, I need to explain these things, get them across, and I need to cover pages 1 and 2 when I do so. So keep that in mind, because turning over to page 1, and note to the student, now this is a student's book, and I want you to see, here in a student's book, this is their first page. They have the table of contents when you get to the peaceful solution that go through here. So they have their table of contents, and then this right here is their first page. So all the information we've covered thus far is not found in a student's handbook. And once again, every page that is found in a student's handbook is kind of clear to the right-hand side. Anything with a gray tab is only found in a teacher's manual. And that's very important because that's information that you as a teacher is responsible to get over to the student. You can't expect them to, well, you can go home and read that and you should be able to come back with it. It's not in their books. They won't even have it. So in their books, this is the very first page. Everything we've talked about from this point backwards is nowhere in a student's book. So that's the responsibilities that teachers must take on to get this point across. And another thing that we'll show you that's helped us as a teacher when you're teaching the program, it helps to where if you'll take an index card and write down the procedure you need to cover, and usually we'll paperclip this to the page that the procedure goes to. So when you get to that page and you're flipping over, you can just pull the index card off, and your procedure, what you need to do, is on your card. And when you're going over to the next page, I pulled these off just so I could show this. Your next one will be here. So you don't have to keep flipping back going, well, what did that procedure say do? You can just take your index card off. And then when you get done, you just put them back in your Rolodex because they don't stay in your book. I can tell you that. I've been through that before. That way, when you're teaching, you can just pull your index card down. You have your notes to your procedure, and when you're done, just put it back and then put it back in your Rolodex as you're finished. And that helps you to keep from the flipping back and forth, and it also helps you to make sure you cover all of your bullet points or everything that the procedure required of you, because once again, remember, we're growing, we're developing a character, and every ingredient that is going into this, if you want to consider it as baking something or cooking something, if you leave an ingredient out, like salt when you're making bread, as soon as you take a bite, you can tell you left the salt out when you bake the bread. Well, every aspect of what has been put together here by the author of the Peaceful Solution and the many teachers and parents that helped put this together, the effort that was put into this is astounding. And every part of it was required to develop, to build, or to grow. So keep that in mind as we start off here. So on page 1, so once again, it said that we're going to explain during the course of the program here, that we're going to explain continually the difference between character and personality. And we read procedure 1 that says we're going to tell a student that today we're going to start our studies with the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program, and we're going to learn what the difference is between character and personality. And that's something that we have to, don't just say it and go, you know the difference. Speak as though they don't. And I don't mean speak down to them. Speak as though that you have a blank canvas and that's all you have. And as a teacher, when you're teaching the Peaceful Solution, consider you're painting a picture. And at the end of your picture, you want your students to see what it was you've been describing the whole time. And that canvas is their mind. And as you're speaking, you're painting that picture with your words. And try to be as careful in covering it, but also be thorough with what we're doing. But rely on the lesson plan in the book as it puts the pieces together. So here with a note to the student. This is the first words they would have heard. It has a little balloon here up top with a quote from the Peaceful Solution. It says, "Life is what you make of it, so make it wonderful by learning." And that's very important because education is always considered the most important thing. That's why as a child you go through pre-K, kindergarten, elementary, junior high, and high school, and then some continue their own education. They'll continue it on with either trade schools, college, so forth. They'll go into specialty education. Education is very important in society. But once again, think of all the classes we offer as a society, all of the colleges that we have, And think about when you went through school, they told you reading, writing, and arithmetic. And those are very important. But everyone expects you to make the right choice, but very few people ever take you through the interaction or the courses, the educational part that it takes to bring forth what we're looking for in society. You can come out of society and be, I'll use an example because these people probably get the worst rap of all, a mechanic. And you can be a mechanic, and you could have went through every school, and you could have been taught positive character, and you can be very honest with people. But the perception when someone comes up is, well, you're just trying to rip me off. And I had a mechanic tell me that a couple weeks ago here in Abilene. He was selling his business, been there for a long time. And I asked him, I said, what are you going to miss most about having your business? He goes, I'm going to miss most, but I'm not going to miss it, but I'm still going to miss it where everybody thinks I'm lying to them. He goes, but I've never been dishonest to people as a mechanic. He said, but everybody thinks I'm dishonest. And I said, that kind of just goes with the territory. It kind of is just something that's a picture that was painted in the mind of people that make people think that. Well, this character education program helps you to get to know a person first before you make that decision. So it says there are some subjects here in the note to the student. There are some subjects you learn just so you can pass your next test, and there are some you learn for life. The Peaceful Solution Character Education Program teaches you lessons that will benefit you, lessons you will benefit from as you grow. The information contained in this book will give you an opportunity to explore some of the things that are important to you and make you who you are. And notice that's all the Peaceful Solution can do is present the opportunity. The education is being presented, so the opportunity is being presented. Each and every student, and it's important that we realize this as teachers, they have to choose to do this. You can't force someone to be positive. If you try to force someone to be positive, you may think that you're accomplishing something in your classroom, but you can't force them when they leave, when they're on the bus, when they go home, when they're with their friends, when they go to the mall, when they go here, when they go there. That doesn't work. So we have to show them the benefits and help them choose it, show them the importance of choosing it, and not as a teacher think, they'll never choose it. Never give up on anyone. Always know that your students can only be as positive and as engaging, and they can only desire the peaceful solution as much as the teacher who is teaching it. If the teacher seems like it's a very lax thing, that everyone should know it, you should know how to do these things, these are things you should have been born knowing. Well, who was born knowing it? Who was born knowing how to make the right choice? None of us were. Well, the information contained in this book, continuing on, speaking to the student, will give you an opportunity. Very important to remember that. Will give you an opportunity. So continuing on, it says, in other words, you will learn about your character. Notice it didn't say you will learn about everybody else's character. You will learn about your character. This first part is for us to get to know ourselves. It's for us to understand, well, why do we do the things we do? And are we responsible for what we do? Well, you're responsible for the decisions you make. We're responsible for the decisions we make. But when society hasn't been educated, well, society suffers when the education hasn't went across. But we're still responsible. If you're speeding down a road and the speed limit goes from 55 to 30 and you didn't see the speed limit and you didn't know because you didn't notice the sign, when you get pulled over and you get a ticket, you're responsible because you broke a rule. You broke a law. Same thing if you go speeding through a school zone. There's reasons those laws were put there. There's reasons that the speed limit drops from 50 to 30. So whether you've seen it or not, you still broke a rule and it still caused danger that could have come in someone's life. Because usually that has to do with neighborhoods and you have housing that are very close to the roads. And that's why the speed limit is reduced. Or there's people walking, pedestrians and so forth. So there's rules for that. And of course, when we break them, whether we knew it or not, the consequence comes. So continuing on, it says, as you study this unit on character, you will be able to gather essential facts that will guide you to make right choices that will in turn help you to develop a positive moral character. And once again, I can't express enough how developing this positive moral character is not instantaneously. Think about when you plant a fruit tree in the yard, how long it takes before you can actually even see the fruit, and then before you can even eat the fruit. So think about that. And that's the way character is done too. And when we're talking about youth, when you're talking about adolescence, well, they could have went through a program. By the time they're 11 years old, they could have been through this program for 6 or 7 years if it was just covered in school in a very engaging process where each and every grade was taught, with the pre-K to the kindergarten, the first, second, and so on. So we could have had a foundation in society, but we found that we don't have a foundation in society, and really society is at fault for that. We as a society are at fault for that. No one person. You can't blame the president. You can't blame your governor. You can't blame your local senators, whether state or federal. We have to acknowledge as a society, if we don't like it, we have to do something different. And whatever we do can't bring harm to ourselves, someone else, or the environment. So going and burning the school down or burning the local senator's office down would not bring any benefit. That wouldn't help at all. Education. And if you're watching these things and you're wondering, what can I do? Get involved with the Peaceful Solution and talk to your community leaders. Tell your community leaders about a program you found and tell them why it's important. Show them why it's important. And if you need someone to help you explain why it's important, call the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program. Zoom calls and Skype calls are so much a part of society today that virtual meetings are being done all around the world. And we would love to help and assist anyone that wants to help to make their society better. Well, a few sad facts of life, and this is something we have to face. It says, in a way, it's a sad fact we live in a society that puts so much emphasis on what people look like on the outside. The way they dress, the way they comb their hair, the makeup they wear, the jewelry they wear, what kind of shoes you got on your feet, whether they're the nicest, the highest price name brand, or whether they're the cheap shoes. Well, society kind of puts value on life because of these things that we're talking about here. It says, whether they are popular, pretty, cute, athletic, tall, short, or fat, as if those are the things that really matter. Does any of those things, when you think about it, if someone is pretty or cute, does that mean they have a positive character? Does that mean they're making decisions that don't hurt themselves, someone else, or the environment? No, you can't look at someone and go, he's athletic. Must be a guy with a positive character. No, that doesn't work that way. But as a society, think about this. When you look at your children, if you go into a school, ask your children, who's your role model? Back when I was in school, the first word would have been, Michael Jordan. And I'm not saying Michael Jordan's a bad person. I'm just saying that he was a role model because he was an athlete to most people. Everybody wanted to be like Mike is what they said. Because he was a role model as an athlete. And that's pretty much how people grow up. It's whoever is the most predominant person in their life, athletes and so much, so forth. It's their dream that they want to accomplish, or that's who I want to be when I'm older. How many people grow up and say, my teacher's my role model? There's some you'll find that'll say that. But then ask them why. Why is your teacher your role model? It's always interesting to find out why. And you'll find some that will say that, but for most, it's usually a musician, a athlete, someone that's popular, movie star. These are things they use for role models. And then consider, how positive a life are they living? What are they really teaching my child? Well, notice here it says it's even sadder that we sometimes feel forced to spend so much time fixing, molding, and changing our outside appearance, the way we dress, speak, and walk, just to fit in and be like everyone else. And in a teenager's life, when you think about the adolescence we're talking about here, and this doesn't go away as you get older, but think about when you were in school, if you're an adult. Think about where you were in school. For myself, I didn't have the latest, greatest clothes. I didn't have the nicest shoes. I didn't have jewelry. Didn't care to wear it. Still don't care to wear it. You still don't want to wear it. But you think about in the school setting itself, it was very diversified. You had from people that were really wealthy to people that didn't have much at all. And you could see the groups, how they were kind of split up. We're kind of split up by wealth, the neighborhoods people lived in, and then association by color, which is sad, but that's a sad fact of life. That was done. And those groups kind of stuck to themselves. Even though we were all in one school, we were like 10 different communities. Well, what separates everybody? Because when a school shooting takes place, who cares who's rich and who's poor? Who cares who's black and who's white? Doesn't really matter, does it? So think about these things. When we see children and the pressure they're under, you see your child in there and he's trying to comb his hair a certain way, or she's trying to get her hair a certain way. Well, think to yourself, why? Are you trying to do it because you like it? Are you trying to do it to impress everyone else around you? Because if you're trying to do it to impress everyone else around you, do you ever catch up with the latest fad? By the time you catch up with what they're doing, they've moved on to something else. And you'll never, ever fit in. Even though you chase it, it's like a goal that you run that has no finish line. You're always running it and you never accomplish it. But we see this conformity, the way it sets in. Well, the saddest fact of all, continuing on, is that in the long run, changing the outside just to fit in, without improving who we are on the inside, has caused many disappointments, lost friendships, and created bad scenes. And underline that word bad scenes, because that's very important. We just discussed a couple of them, these bad scenes that go on, and we even talked about how adults can be susceptible to these bad scenes. Well, it says, in case you're wondering what a bad scene is, it's the 1 million teen pregnancies a year, or the 25,000 teens who are diagnosed, notice, with HIV. They're HIV positive every year. If you think being positive for COVID is bad, HIV has been proven to kill. COVID, scientists have proven, doesn't kill. It makes you really sick, but it doesn't kill. On the other hand, HIV has been proven to kill. Well, these are things that we're not slamming the brakes on society like we see for other diseases. And you got to question why. It's a lack of education. It's a lack of understanding. Well, once again, this HIV, every year in the United States alone, 25,000 teens, or the thousands more who die in drunk driving accidents, and hundreds of thousands of teenagers who have to suffer through the divorce of their parents. And that's something that, if a child has ever went through that as a teacher, you have to remember that you can't control what the parents of the child does at your student, but you still have to teach that student. You still have to give them hope. You still have to give them direction. And it's very important that we always remember that when going through and teaching the peaceful solution. We've been in gymnasiums before, groups of 400 and 500 people in auditoriums. And you always know when you walk into that group, you have guidance counselors that usually work with you. And this is something, if a guidance counselor doesn't tell you this, please put it in your mind and never forget it. When you go into that auditorium, guaranteed there's at least 5 students contemplating suicide. Guaranteed, when you have that many students in your school. Guaranteed there's at least 5 children that are being molested. Guaranteed. Guaranteed there's girls that have been raped and being abused. Guaranteed. Guaranteed there's children that have STDs, they have herpes, they have it for life, but they don't understand why they've got it yet. That's guaranteed. And when you're teaching your class, you have to remember that, but you also have to remember, most likely they've never been given the tools on how to remove themselves from those situations. They're like a leaf blowing in the wind. They're a voice crying out, asking how to fix this. And what you want to offer them is something that will stir their mind to action. Something, the words from your mouth, you can't solve the problem in a 1-hour presentation. But you can at least get their mind to thinking, hey, there is an answer to this. And to get them to start searching for it. And give them direction on where they can find it. Give them hope. Because when someone's in that position, there's just not much hope. They've lost the hope, or they've never had the hope to begin with. When someone has hope in their life, they always see a reason for living tomorrow. They always see if they're being abused, there's a way to get out. And, I'll tell you the power of this program. We were teaching that in Houston one time. And there was a teacher that became very uncomfortable with teaching the program. And we didn't know why. So we wanted to meet with him and talk to them and ask them, what is it that's making you uncomfortable? He said, well, I want to tell you. And it was this book they were teaching. He said, well, I was teaching that book. And we were going through certain things about character and personality and how some things bad can occur to people and it's not their fault. And a young girl stood up and said, my uncle's been molesting me for years. She never told anybody, never said a word to anybody. And the teacher said, I don't want to know these things. I don't want to know my students are going through these things. You know, and her answer was, that's what guidance counselors are for. All you have to do is tell the guidance counselor. They'll come in, they'll help them, they'll assist them. But, you know, the program is meant to bring things out. You don't want it brought out in the open in front of a classroom, sure. But if a child feels compelled to deal with a problem they've been hiding for years, we have to find a way to help them. You can't look at them and go, well, no, sit down and don't talk about that. That's what, you know, they've been hiding their whole life. And when it brings them out, let everyone have their job. And as a peaceful solution instructor, when you go into a school, guidance counselors will be your best friends. Those are the ones that help you kind of direct your way through the school, and they're the ones that give you a heads up on the problems. They're the ones that will tell you, this is what's going on in the lives of our children here, because they know. They're the ones that get into the intimate conversations with them. But remember that as you talk to these people, you know, these youth, or even if you're talking to adults, there's a lot of adults with a lot of secrets hidden back that's causing problems in their lives they've never talked to anyone about. And that doesn't mean as a teacher, if they come out and say, this occurred to me, just because you're teaching the peaceful solution doesn't mean that you're ready to sit down and lead them through life. Send them to the people that have been set aside. In a school, it's a guidance counselor. Send them to people that are meant and trained to handle those professionally. And that's the things that need to be done. So consider that when you get involved in this and things like that come up. Well, here on page 2, we're going to talk about a road less traveled. And this road less traveled has to do with decisions making that's not the most popular. It's not the most desired. You know, it's not the sports car. It's the Pinto or the Vega or the Maverick, or I don't know what kind of car today nobody wants, but back when I was in school, nobody wanted one of those. It's not the popular thing. It's not the nicest shoes or the nicest shirt or the nicest pants. The road less traveled is the one that most people wouldn't readily grab or go for, but it's the one that's the safest. It's the one that benefits you the most. So reading here, it says, here's what it boils down to. You don't have to go this route, and this is about making choices and suffering the consequences. You can take a road less traveled. Now, it might not be the most popular road or the road that your friends are taking, but there is another fact. Life is about making choices, and every day we make choices, and that governs the outcome of our lives. The choices you make, the ones that could save your life, will be based on your development of a positive character, and the only way to develop a positive character is to start paying attention to what's going on the inside. So along with keeping your appearance, you must keep working to develop positive, morally justifiable character. Yeah, it doesn't mean, well, I need to check my heart, get my blood pressure every day, see what's going on the inside. It's talking about decision making. And remember when we first started out, we said thoughts lead to feelings and feelings lead to actions. Well, those thoughts and feelings are all internalized. We don't see it on the outside until it becomes an action. So we're talking about internalizing the things going on the inside, are these thoughts and these emotions that are going on. The emotions that will bring forth actions that will either have a consequence or a reward to it. So it says, so along with keeping your appearance up, so we got through that. So let's go on down to, let's reread that once again. So along with keeping your appearance up, you must keep working to develop a positive, morally justifiable character. In order to avoid those bad scenes we talked about, you have to start building a positive character and start making choices that are decided ahead of time and are consistently responsible, respectful, and honest, and that's just to name a few. This introductory of the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program, notice it'll lay a foundation. It gives us a starting point, something we can build on, of moral character development that can remain in your life for a lifetime, or remain with you for a lifetime. It will last you as long as you last. No one can take it from you. Within these pages lie a wealth of knowledge. And remember, we said knowledge is power. If you want control over your life, if you want the power over your life, that knowledge will give it to you. So a wealth of knowledge, facts, and notice techniques. Techniques are very important with the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program that will prepare you to reach your full moral potential. So pay very close attention in this class. What you will learn in the next several weeks or months, you can use for the rest of your life. Just remember, your character is what you make. Your character is what makes you who you are. So your character is what makes you who you are. It will determine what you stand for and what you will fall for. If you stand on a positive character, you won't regret it. There's no way to have a negative result from making positive decisions. Now, you may make a positive decision. You might make a positive decision that your friends don't like, and you could lose friends over it because you did something that they wanted to have a risk-taking behavior, but you chose not to, and you might think that that's bad, but in the end, it's actually no negatives can ever come from positives. Now, you can put a positive and a negative together, just like in math, and you can get a negative, but two positives never bring forth a negative. When you're making positive decisions, remember, two wrongs never make a right, and two rights never make a wrong. As long as we're making and putting forth effort to make a positive choice, we can never go wrong, and we should never regret it. Well, we believe that the principles contained in this book, when applied to your everyday life, will bring you such abundant living that you will be forever appreciative. Now it will be up to you to take hold of the principles that bring success and never let anyone deter you from this path. And that's one thing we have to be as teachers. We're guiding them down that pathway. We're guiding them in a way that we know if they will take hold of these techniques and develop this character in the way it's taught by the Peaceful Solution, they'll never have a regret, and everyone will benefit. Everyone that comes into not only their lives, but think of ourselves as teachers. Everyone that comes into our presence should benefit from us being in their lives. If people are suffering because we're in their lives, then remember, we're supposed to start with ourselves first. If we're causing someone to suffer, we should evaluate ourselves. Are we doing something that's causing this person harm? And if we think, no possible way, then we need to look in the mirror and be honest with ourselves. Because we all do things we can improve upon. We're all doing things right now, I guarantee you, that we could change so we can be a better person. Because it's always growing. This character is always growing. Just like a tree, it never stops. It always grows. So consider those things. And the next class, we're going to stop right there. The next teacher will pick up with Procedure 2, starting on page 3. And the next class will be 11:25. That'll just be in a few days at 5:30, same time, Central Standard Time. And I know for those who are watching overseas, some of you it's 3 o'clock in the morning, but you can always replay these classes online. They're uploaded, and you can play them and replay them and play them again. So the next class will be 11:25, 5:30 p.m. Thank you very much.